In 1992, the nation's largest shopping complex was built in Bloomington, Minnesota. This was known as the Mall of America. Although there has been a similar mega mall built in New Jersey, the Mall of America is still the nation's largest mall, boasting 500 stores on 4 different levels, many restaurants, and of course, the 7-acre indoor theme park, Nickelodeon Universe. But it wasn't always this way. In fact, when the mall opened, there was no such thing as Nickelodeon. Good afternoon, this is North Star Coasters, and joining me today is Coaster Cloud. So a huge thank you to him, and I'll encourage you to check his channel out. I'll have a link in the description box down below. But with that said, join us as we uncover the history of Knott's Camp Snoopy.
Welcome. I guess you all know this little fella here. It's an old partnership. Mickey and I started out the first time many years ago. We've had a lot of our dreams come true. Now we want you to share with us our latest and greatest dream. That's it, right here. Disneyland.
Our story starts in 1955 on June 17th in California. Walt Disney has just opened Disneyland. This all-new theme park was revolutionary, not only in the rides, but also they had brand recognition on their side, and that was Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse was single-handedly the most well-known mascot of all time, and he still is to this day. We all know Mickey Mouse, and when we see him, we automatically think of Disney. But 5 miles away from Disneyland, there is another theme park that's locally owned by a family, and that is Knott's Berry Farm. Knott's Berry Farm is often credited as the first ever theme park in America. However, after the opening of Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm's attendance began to fall, and that was because of one big issue. The park didn't have any mascots or characters, whereas Disney had Mickey Mouse, possibly the biggest character of all time, and their character selection was growing as time goes on. The Knott family had to act fast, and in the 1960s they introduced their first ever mascot, Whittles the Gold Miner. Yes, you heard me right, his name is Whittles. This gold miner was Knott's Berry Farm's first ever mascot and character. However, he kind of failed, because he wasn't attached to any form of pop culture. Unless you're a hardcore Knott's Berry Farm's fanboy, you probably don't even know about this character. Knott's Berry Farm had to have a new mascot, something that people knew about and would bring in the crowds just to see him, and that's where Charles M. Schulz comes in. In the 1950s, Charles M. Schulz started a comic strip called Peanuts, with characters as Charlie Brown, Lucy, Linus, Sally, Franklin, and more, and of course, Snoopy. Fast forward to 1960s, and Snoopy and the Peanuts gang is the biggest comic strip on the planet. And as the comic strip grew ever so popular, Charles M. Schulz was smart enough to license these characters, and soon enough, Charlie Brown and the whole Peanuts gang was visible on a lot of ads and even Hallmark holiday cards. As time went on, Charlie Brown, Snoopy, and the whole Peanuts gang is a national icon, and kind of comparable to Mickey Mouse in popularity. After Walter Knott passed away, his daughter took over the park, and her first priority was to get a new mascot. She immediately thought of Snoopy and the Peanuts gang, so she contacted Charles M. Schulz and asked if he would license the characters. He said yes, and thus Knott's Berry Farm officially had its new mascot, Snoopy. In 1983, Knott's Berry Farm opened their new family section, known as Camp Snoopy.
Attention moms and dads, have your kids been doing this, turning their backs and refusing to talk till you take them to Knott's? You may wonder why. My assistant will demonstrate. They have rides, fast, fun, exciting rides. Shows like Snoopy's all-new Ice Spectacular. And besides, now you get to see me there live. And Snoopy and Charlie Brown too, of course. My advice? Take your kids to Knott's, or never see their faces again.
The all-new area of the park was nothing short of a huge hit. After Knott's Camp Snoopy opened, Knott's Berry Farm's attendance began to rise up and skyrocket. About 10 years after this massive success, Knott's Berry Farm would expand their park, but this time they would expand in a different state, and this state would be Charles M. Schulz's home state.
Before Mall of America stood tall over Bloomington, Minnesota, the land was occupied by the Metropolitan Field, or Metfield for short. The Metfield was a stadium where Minnesota sports teams would play, like the Minnesota Twins and the Minnesota Vikings. But only being open since 1956, the Metfield had dozens of problems up its sleeve, most notably being the relatively small seating arrangement at around 48,700, which was extremely small for a stadium even at that time. This would cause numerous problems over the years. Over time, the small seating and other problems began to arise, but in 1981, a far bit north in Minneapolis, a new stadium was built called the Metrodome that fixed most of the problems that the Metfield had currently. In December of 1981, the Metfield would host its final ever game. After the game was over, fans swarmed the field, knowing it would be the last ever time the Metfield was in operation. With the field trashed and polluted, as well as the rest of the stadium, the future of it would be very unclear, which I couldn't have said any better myself because it would sit abandoned for another 3 years until finally demolished in January of 1985. It would sit there for another year until plans start to arise in 1986 for a new insane project to be occupied on that huge plot of land.
After the closure and removal of Metropolitan Stadium, the Mall of America began planning. In 1986, the Bloomington Port Authority signed an agreement with the Gurmazian organization. Shortly after, the whole project was greenlighted by the city of Bloomington. On June 14, 1989, groundbreaking officially began, and following that came the construction of the biggest mall in America. The Mall of America was without a doubt one of the most complex projects of all time, with over 3 floors being built, and with a footprint of more than 5 million square feet. This site was so huge that it actually had its own zip code, and the Mall of America, even today, still has its own zip code because of its size. Finally, on August 11, 1992, the Mall of America would officially open to the public.
Tomorrow, when the Mall of America opens, there are going to be 270 stores to look through, but if that weren't enough, there are going to be 400 of them when this is all said and done and completed.
And we want to show you what the shopping area layout will look like for the Mall of America. The 4 anchor department stores, Sears, Macy's, Nordstrom, and Bloomingdale's, occupy the corners. Those are the anchor stores. Camp Snoopy, of course, is right in the middle of all of that, surrounding the theme park. 3 levels of shops.
On opening day, the Mall of America absolutely blew people away, not only by its size, but just the amount of stuff to do. Not only were there 200 stores, one being a huge Lego store, which is pretty cool, but there's also over 50 restaurants to choose from. There's also a movie theater, an indoor roller skating rink, and most importantly, the biggest attraction of the mall, Knott's Camp Snoopy.
It's the nation's largest indoor amusement park and is located right in the heart of the nation's #1 shopping and entertainment destination, Mall of America.
Knott's Camp Snoopy opened up with the mall in 1992, and for many people, this was the highlight of the day. Everybody loved the Peanuts theming, and this made a lot of sense because Charles M. Schulz lived in Minnesota, so it was perfect. For an indoor theme park, Knott's Camp Snoopy was very advanced. Not only did it feature a glass roof, but it also featured live trees, rock work, and the paths were slightly elevated, so on a sunny day, this park would feel like an outdoor park because of all this stuff. As for admission, the park was free to enter. However, if you want to ride rides, you'd have to purchase a separate wristband to do so. There is also arcades, shops, restaurants, and Snoopy and the Peanuts gang could be seen around the park. On opening day, there were many attractions to choose from. There were 3 roller coasters. The kiddie coaster was called Little Shavers, a paddle rail roller coaster that went in a circle, and that's pretty much it. There's also Pepsi Ripsaw, which was a Zamperla coaster that took guests around the park and even interacted with the log chute. And finally, there was Timberland Twister, a first-of-its-kind Gerstlauer spinning coaster that opened with the park in 1992. The park also featured a number of flat rides, such as the Kite Eating Tree, which was basically your typical swing ride that was themed to Charlie Brown. There's also a ride called Screaming Yellow Eagle, which was a Starfall attraction and was a hit amongst the families. But arguably the most thrilling ride in the park was the Mighty Axe, which was a ride that took guests in a circle while also spinning them upside down. Very similar to a Huss Topspin. But my personal favorite attraction was the Paul Bunyan's Log Chute. This log chute is one of a kind. Not only is it one of the best log chutes in the US, but it's also very cool considering it's in an indoor facility. First off, there are 2 drops, the first one being shorter than the second one. There's also plenty of animatronics, and it even interacts with the Pepsi Ripsaw roller coaster. There is also a Snoopy themed bouncy house, as well as a 3D simulator ride called Mystery Mine Ride. And there was also the Ferris wheel that gave guests a good vantage point of the entire park. The park was well received by critics and fans alike, and Knott's Camp Snoopy in the Mall of America was a huge success. However, it would undergo a change in management less than 10 years after it was built. In 1998, Cedar Fair bought Knott's Berry Farm. This purchase also included the park in the Mall of America, as well as the rights to the Peanuts characters, which Cedar Fair took quick advantage of, and they built a Camp Snoopy at Cedar Point. Cedar Fair also owned other parks. They owned Valley Fair, Worlds of Fun, and Dorney Park. Worlds of Fun and Dorney Park would not receive a Camp Snoopy until 2011. However, at this point, Valley Fair didn't need a Camp Snoopy because the Mall of America location was basically acting as the Camp Snoopy for Valley Fair. Valley Fair and the Mall of America were located 20 minutes away from each other. For this reason, Cedar Fair renamed Knott's Camp Snoopy to just Camp Snoopy. And even though Camp Snoopy was Cedar Fair's only park that was open all year, Cedar Fair will continue to ignore it and instead focus on buying new parks and investing in parks they had already, such as Valley Fair. However, less than a decade after Cedar Fair bought the park, there would be some big changes, and these changes would put the park's future into uncertainty. 2006, less than a decade after Cedar Fair bought Camp Snoopy. This proved to be a crucial year for the park, and is also very challenging and brought many changes, often for the worst. The contract between Mall of America and Cedar Fair fell apart. The main reason for this is because Cedar Fair did not allow the mall to advertise the park in the way the mall needed to promote the business. When Cedar Fair left, they took all the rights to the Peanuts characters with them, so that means the Mall of America could not operate the park as Camp Snoopy or have any Peanuts theming. As a result, the park's name changed to the Park at MOA.
When all the Peanuts branding were forced to be removed, the park did an unsatisfying job at keeping all the rides different from what they used to be. And this was painfully obvious by the horrible job that the park did to get rid of all the Peanuts characters and branding. Fortunately, pretty much all the rides and attractions that were not themed to any of the Peanuts characters stayed the same, but there were very few rides in the park that did not feature any Peanuts characters, so almost every single ride in the park and the attractions had to be changed in some way. This left a bad taste in the park because all the characters that made the park so enjoyable in the first place were now gone, and it would suffer for this for a long time. Multiple attractions around the park still gave off the Camp Snoopy vibe even though they were not supposed to be. Replacements included paint jobs, statues of characters, and even some rides as a whole were taken out. A lot of the attractions also had name changes. The rides that had name changes included the Mighty Axe, which was changed to Tack Attack. The Kite Eating Tree was renamed to Tree Flyer. The Snoopy Bounce House was renamed to just Bounce, and the inflatable Snoopy on top was removed. And Joe Cool's driving school was renamed to just Bumpers. With all these changes also came 3 rides that were completely removed. These 3 rides included Red Baron, the Shooting Gallery, and most devastating being the 3D Dark Ride Mystery Mine, which is extremely unique for even a park at that time. Shows and character meetups were also changed in various ways. Like I said before, most other rides pretty much stayed the same. Some with minor changes and re-themes but still kept the same name. With all these changes happening so quick, as well as the characters and theming that people loved, especially Minnesotans, were now gone, it left a darker and depressing atmosphere from what was Camp Snoopy, only having remnants left that were still painfully obvious. Nowadays, this is a time in the park's history that wants to be forgotten. The park would operate like this for over a year. People did not like the new changes that were happening with the park. Everything seemed to be going downhill, and attendance would drop for the next year. This low attendance would not only affect the park and the guests, but the entire mall too. The future of the park would seem very worrying. But during this time, something huge was happening behind the scenes, and in 2007, construction began on a huge project.
To the grand opening of Nickelodeon Universe, the first ever Nickelodeon theme park. Make some noise, everyone.
In 2007, Viacom and 555 signed a contract to license and own the park. This also brought changes to some major rebranding, and it was later announced that the plan was to rebrand and revamp the whole park into Nickelodeon Universe. Shortly after, construction began, and on March 15, 2008, Nickelodeon Universe would officially open to the public. Along with this, there was a lot of rebranding and retheming. Everything was themed to Nickelodeon. The pathways were painted orange, and the whole park kinda had a good energy vibe to it all. There were also ride name changes. For instance, Pepsi Ripsaw became Pepsi Orange Streak, Timberland Twister became Fairly Odd Coaster, the Tree Swing Ride became Backyardigans Swing-A-Lawn, Screaming Yellow Eagle became Danny Phantom's Ghost Zone, and more. Along with this change came some new rides. There was a new drop tower called Splatosphere, a new flat ride called Brain Surge, and two new roller coasters. First, there's Avatar Airbender, which was an Intamin half-pipe coaster that opened with the park in 2008. And of course, arguably the best coaster in the entire park, SpongeBob SquarePants Rock Bottom Plunge, built by Gerstlauer, a Eurofighter coaster, and it kinda took a while for this to get built, but soon enough, in late 2008, it opened up, and it took over the spot where the Mystery Mine Ride used to be. The theme park was well received by the general public, thrill seekers, and critics alike for having great rides and having excellent theming. Whether you like the new theming or not, you can't deny that Nickelodeon Universe has had a positive impact on the Mall of America and the whole theme park as a whole. And overall, this park is a very fun time. I've been there several times, and I can say for sure, I've had so many good memories here. However, looking back at the Camp Snoopy days, it sure is sad to see it go, but memories will always live on to the people who got to experience it. Even today, there are many of us who would wish to go back to Camp Snoopy just one more time.